So when Nicola told me that there was going to be a Crawford Festival, I was really excited and really honoured to be asked to participate, because if stamps are the DNA of philately, and stamp catalogues are the central nervous system, then books are the brain, and journals are in fact the heart and soul. Because like David and others in the room here, I see philately very much as a subject, but a bit more than that, it's also an entire subculture. When you look at the anthropological definitions of subcultures, they have their own language, they have their own kind of memorabilia, clothing, social events. You know, when you read academic books on the history of collecting, it's all very much seen as these kind of loners, kind of pioneering the way and grabbing everything they can. Of course, it's not. It's inherently social. So I'd like to thank the organisers for letting me be here today. And yeah, the bar's going to be low. Yeah. So some of you, I suspect, will be here about writing a book, which I suppose means instead of focusing exclusively on our history and rarities, that I should tell you why the British Library and its philatelic collections are of relevance. And consequently, although I'm going to touch on some of the very broad historic brush strokes of the department, its amazing rarities, instead I'm going to try and give you a bit of a practical guide to do three things, which is first of all look at what we have, followed by why it may be relevant to you, why does the British Library matter, and then more importantly, how do you access it? So let's crack on. So the most obvious place to start, of course, is our on-site services, and of course with the British Library's philatelic collections. So they are the National Philatelic Collection of the United Kingdom, the origins of which can actually be traced back to the bequest of Thomas Key Taplin's worldwide collection of postage stamps, telegraph stamps and postal stationery to the Department of Printed Books, then at the British Museum in 1891. Now, Edward Denny Bacon and his assistant Jane Hamilton curated the collection and helped put the British Museum, along with Taplin's bequest, really on the map as a global philatelic centre of significance and excellence. And as a result of their work, their pioneering work to develop a national collection and display it publicly, bequests and transfers of official government archives followed, which really built on Taplin's monumental foundation and his vision of developing a national philatelic collection. An Act of Parliament created the British Library in 1973, and it brought over 18 major archival and research libraries together into a single institution for the first time. And a multi-million-pound building was commissioned on its completion in 1997. The Department of Printed Books and its philatelic collections, of course, moved to their current site in St Pancras, which is here. I've been there 18 years, serving in Her Majesty's institution at her leisure, and I still get lost, so gives you an idea of the size. So at present, the British Library's philatelic collections comprise 80 major collections of philatelic significance, and they total 8.5 million collection items. I want you to think about that. Visitors arriving at the British Library can view a selection of the philatelic collections in our display cases situated on the upper ground floor of the St Pancras site during opening hours, which we'll go into later, and comprising 10 cases, totaling 1,000 frames. These Grade 1 listed display cases are capable of exhibiting approximately 80,000 stamps or collection items at any one time. That makes it the largest permanent exhibition space in the library, which is, again, quite a challenging thing to keep up. However, it's important to note that not everything is actually on display in the public area, as a second image signifies. So what we have in this image is illicit. I'm not allowed to do this, but sometimes rules are just made to be broken. We have here part of our Fletcher collection, followed on by our UPU collection here. This is a tiny part of the collection in the storage area to give you a rough idea of how much isn't on display. Moving on, the British Library's philatelic collections can be very loosely divided into what I would say 2, maybe even 3 distinct typologies. So for the first class, we have philatelic and postal history collections proper. so basically collections that were compiled and written up by philatelists, leading philatelists. And here they are, many of them listed in alphabetical order. And as you can observe from the names, in addition to Taplin's, many of them are developed by the pioneering and leading philatelists in their respective fields. So we have, for example, the Fitzgerald collection of pioneer ale males of the world to the 1930s. We have on top of that the, let's just see, the Shelley collection of international brigades in the Spanish Civil War. We have the Rowe collection of Siam. In addition to that, we have the Fletcher collection of postal history. We have the Smith's Wilson Todd collection for First World War material. We have the Wherry collection of postcards. Every aspect of postal history and philately is represented in our collections. You know, people who are interested in Poland, Germany, Croatia, Albania, Bulgaria could do well to consult the Blakey, Bojanowicz, Chisman, Ertugrul, Fieldam and Zagorski collections. If you're interested in China, we can look at the Murray collection. The Burnett collection of Hyderabad is a fantastic resource for princely states. Our GB specialists may enjoy the postal, well, if you're a GB postal historian, you're really ignoring our Fletcher and Holman collection at your own peril. And in addition to kind of postal history and philately, we also have a range of other collections. So we have, you know, significant collections of revenue material in the Smithsonian collection, US Revenue. Also in the Turner, Davies and Kay collection, you'll find many kind of revenue stamps embossed and printed from all over the world, which include major rarities. I could go on, but I think you get the idea here that we cover pretty much everything. Now, formed by philatelists for the public, the British Library's philatelic collections provide individuals and researchers access to unique objects of philatelic significance and rarity, and this is done regardless of one's economic background or networks of personal connection. So any member of the public doing research can obtain a reader's pass and come and use these collections. And like I say, too numerous to expound at length, here's a minute fraction of some of these rarities. So the GB 1858 79 1 penny red plate 77. At the top we've got examples of these in the Taplin and the Fletcher collections. The Mauritius 1847 2 penny post office unused. Our China, one of my favourites is this lovely China 1897 red revenue 3 cents with 2 cent surcharge double inverted unused. That's from the Murray collection, real rarity. Our India 1854 4 and our blue and red arrow inverted head, 2 copies on cover, which is unique. Of course, our lovely Switzerland Zurich 4-appen black unique strip showing all the 5 types, which is the largest known strip. And again, one of the first introductions for me towards philately and stamps was, of course, the US 1918 airmail 24 cent error inverted centre unused, which is our inverted Jenny. I first came across that as a boy watching Brewster's Millions with Richard Pryor, so that's kind of my way in. Now, when you're a researcher, yes, you're getting access to these rarities, but you're actually getting a lot more than that. So it's not just about the philatelic artifacts. Our curatorial practice, which is long-standing of maintaining the archival integrity of these type of collections, gives you access to the intellectual heritage of some of the greatest philatelists in their field and their psychology and their research and system of understanding the hobby. So it's not just about the rarities, it's about the history of research and knowledge development. So Bacon's write-up, which is on the far left with another rarity, I'll do a quiz after, you can tell me what one it is. Bacon's write-up remains true to Taplin's vision for his collection. And in it, you're able to gain kind of partial insights into the state of knowledge at the time, their mind, and the same hold true for the kind of Zagorski collection of Bulgaria, in addition to kind of this page from Shelley's Spanish Civil War cover. So you're really getting the personalities behind the collections, which I think is one of the major things why, where possible, we always maintain that archival heritage. It's great from a management point of view as well. And moving on to the second class of collections, These comprise basically the official archives of government institutions engaged in security printing, companies, and also individual engravers and stamp designers. Within this, kind of my subset, if you will, there are also the archives of private papers of philatelists and philatelic reporters and researchers at the time. So what we have here, so really for me, well, we'll go and I can show you. So the official archives of particular note include the Board of Inland Revenue Stamping Department archive. And this enormous archive comprises proofs of postage stamps, postal station and revenue stamps from 1694 to 1971. And it includes one of my favourites here, the proof sheet of the America 1765 one-penny newspaper tax stamps, of course, the stamps that contributed to the American Revolution. So stamps aren't only used to build national revenues for nation states and colonies and their communication networks. They literally shape our day-to-day activity. It's how core we are. On top of that, you know, beside we have our Crown Agents Philatelic and Security Printing Archives, and this includes a wealth of pre-production artwork, proof material, specimen material. One nice piece on this collection is this unissued Jamaica 1956-58 £1 stamp, the lovely Wilding QE2 portrait. And then underneath that we have an item from our FCO, or Foreign Commonwealth Office collection of postage stamps and postal stationery. And this covers the period between 1890 to about 1992. And it includes this lovely rare St. Helena 1961 Tristan Relief Fund, 5 cent plus 6 cent surcharge, 7.5 cent, 9 cent, and the 10 cent plus 1 shilling surcharge used on postcard. Of course, these were issued to, there was a volcanic eruption. Do you all know about the stamps? Yeah. Okay. So they were manufactured. Basically, the Colonial Office said they were unauthorised. They were withdrawn from sale, and they were used to raise money to aid refugee relief efforts from Christian Takuna following the volcanic eruption. And of course, this is a major modern philatelic rarity. You know, and again, any member of the public can come in, use this for research should they wish. Within the archives, of course, our documentary holdings such as, sadly, documentary holdings like letters, correspondence aren't generally included. These archives tend to focus more on the philatelic security printing products. But where we do hold documentary material, it's intrinsically valuable. So what I have on my right side, your left side, is a page from our 16 volumes of requisition books in the Crown Agents Philatelic and Security Printing Archive. And it includes details of orders placed by various overseas territories for postage stamps, revenue stamps, postal stationery, banknotes, and other orders, and it covers the period from 1921 to 1968. It's very complementary to the Delarue Day books at the Postal Museum Archive. The exception being that ours doesn't just cover Delarue, it covers all the security printing agencies who were working for the Crown Agent. So there are gaps that there are things that Delarue produce that won't be in these, and likewise we've got things that won't be in. So it's a nice way of them kind of meshing together. Kind of institutionally. Likewise, with regard, actually there's, Martin is in today, I think. He may have left already, but I had a reader in yesterday looking through the Williams papers, so the research notes of the philatelic authors Leon Norman Williams and Maurice Williams, and includes over 20 volumes of their correspondence with leading philatelist dealers and societies. And we were going through them yesterday. We had great fun. And one example from that extensive archive is this letter here, dated addressed to Robson Lowe, dating the 23rd of September 1989. And I'm quite impressed because it's relating to the paper manufacturer called J. Watman that was used on various stamps. And I know a bit about them because they were major suppliers for the East India Company. So again, how my past role and current one, that's basically I thought I knew more than I did. As a totality, these various collections are global in scope and possess specimens covering almost every aspect and format of stamp manufacture. So the Crown Agents Philatelic and Security Printing Archives and Tombs papers include tens of thousands of sketches, essays and reproduction artwork for well over 100 countries, such as this. This is my recent article in the LP, The Watercolour for the British Honduras 1972 Mayan Artefact, issue 3 stamps, a beautiful piece of artwork. It was inspired by the lighting of an exhibition at the Met Gallery. If you want to learn more, feel free to read the current LP. Right next to it, in addition to kind of various stamp office machine printing presses, we also have the Perkins D cylinder press, of the type used to print the penny black and the 2 penny blue from the May 1840 period. It also did a range of colonial stamps and banknotes as well, and that's on public display next to the cases. We also have the Delarue die for the USA Confederate States, kind of 1862 5-cent Jefferson Davis stamp. So you can see we've got, someone said to me, oh, you're lucky, you're moving from the India office to stamps. They're going to be so small and portable. I think it's taken about 2 years off my working life, some of this stuff. My spine, since I've taken this job, it's like, just doesn't know no limit, you know. So those wishing to learn more about the holdings of the British Library's philatelic collection would really do well to consult David Beach. You're getting around today, mate. So, you know, his guide to the philatelic research at the British Library, it really is a must-go-to book for what collections we hold, because obviously I can't go in and go into detail for everything in such a narrow space of time, and you'd all fall asleep if I did. In addition to that, though, since during the pandemic, we've developed a structure. I'm a qualified archivist, so it's going into our, I'm basing it on archival description for various reasons, but long short is that many of the top level descriptions are now being put into the British Library's archives and manuscripts kind of database system, are accessible on the catalogues, which I'll go into more about later. Now, moving on from the philatelic collections to our Department of Bibliographic Content. We're responsible for the curation of the Crawford Library of Philatelic Literature, which of course was formed, as David said earlier, by James Ludovic Lindsay, 26th Earl of Crawford. In addition to being the namesake of this festival, Crawford's library is worthy of mention for being the most complete philatelic library, most complete library of philatelic literature for the period from 1861 to 1913. And it comprises auction catalogues, books, serials, periodicals, official papers, covering all aspects of philately for that period. And I have to say, during lockdown, when mobility and access to collections was very limited, and at a time when I really, you know, there was a demand for public outreach, which is what we call talks, presentation, this online resource was a game changer. I was able to check a lot of important information. I can't stress its importance for research. Again, I'll talk about accessing this later. So it totals, as David says, 4,500 volumes, and it includes many rarities of literature, such as this descriptive price list and catalogue of British colonial and foreign stamps from November 1865. For the eagle-eyed amongst you, of course, it's the first Stanley Gibbons catalogue, a real rarity. And I'm lucky enough to handle that in my job, just saying. So in addition to the Crawford Library, the British Library's philatelic collections has also developed a substantial collection of worldwide philatelic books in its own right, and libraries, which currently stands at about 35,000 volumes. And as an aside, you know, all philatelic research should begin with the literature. Don't start with the collection, start with the literature. Start with the books, the magazines, the journals, do the legwork, and the rewards, it will really make it easier further down the line. Now, our collection of philatelic literature, you might wonder why I'm saying you start here, but mine's further down. Our collection of philatelic literature is really exclusively designed as an on-site reference collection. So and there's a lot of talk about competition. You can't compare and compete the Postal Museum, the library, or the Royal. It's like comparing a helicopter, a tank, and a Lamborghini. They're inherently different institutions, so it's not about competition, it's about collaboration. And at this point, it's for me to say that if you want to access these, sometimes it is easier to come here because you can borrow the books. But of course, we have the major rarities as well that can support that research. And of course, we also have gaps that we have things you don't have. Like we've got a much more complete collection of UPU treaties. So it's about engagement, okay? So the British Library's philatelic collections really comprise a small but fundamental component of the entire organisation. And this can present challenges, I'm not going to lie. I mean, in terms of bureaucracy, if Kafka was alive, he'd write a novel about this place. I mean, it's really quite, but that's well and truly offset by the advantages. The advantages of being part of this institution are massive. First of all, as a £100 million research institution and a library of national deposit, that means every book printed in the UK can be found at the BL, every journal. So we have a lot of material in the wider collections, and that's before acquisitions budgets come in. So we really, really are the heart of the library. Philately and communications the heart of the library, and communications being core to everything we do means philatelic material is found in every part of the library. So runs of post office guides, entire runs can be found for Britain, India and much of the Empire and Commonwealth in our official publications collections in the India Office Records and Social Sciences, such as the Malayan Post Office Guide here. Our printed heritage collections include this official announcement of the London Penny Post, in addition to a poem written about the Docker's Penny Post in 1683, which is something I'm writing up, the earliest poem about a stamp. You've seen it here first today. Okay, and then of course the newspaper collections include this broadsheet about Machiavel during the siege, and that's just the printed. When I go to the archives of manuscripts, you know, housed in the India Office Records and the manuscript collections, we have the potential to rewrite areas of postal history. So first of all, from the India Office East India Company Records on the my far right is a reverse of a letter dated 21st of August 1616 from Richard Cox at Shizuoka in Japan to Richard Wickham in Kyoto. Postal history in the books, it starts Foreign Post 1876. Why is there a 17th century letter here? What you'll notice is there's some Japanese characters, and that's transliterations of the delivery instructions for a Japanese messenger. And there's a note on there saying, pay port one mass carriage charge. You got a postal rate from early 17th century Japan between the English community. In the middle, of course, we have a reverse of an entire address to the Right Honourable Lord Hutton in Westminster with a 1680 Dockra penny post stamp on it. And on the right here, I have a silk envelope from the Taiping Emperor to one of his generals, which has postal annotations on the left. Another thing I'm writing up, and again, this is from the mid-19th century, and the letter's lovely as well. So it really is a great object in yellow silk. Yellow silk envelopes are quite predominantly used throughout, you know, Iran, India, Southeast East Asia. And we generally nickname them Curator, but this isn't a Curator because obviously that's a Persian name, it's a Chinese. But anyway. So being core to the library enables us to identify communities and groups to help philately grow by its promotion. But for you as researchers, it also benefits by enabling us to identify other collections and resources, as well as individuals and communities of relevance to what you do. So here I was, this was an event I was in just before the pandemic, helping with a Somalian charity for refugees. The community's face, so on the back I kind of hijacked this. I was called in on the last minute. You'll see the walls on the back. I took scans of the stamps, I blew them up and I turned it into an art gallery. You should have seen the community's face, the way they lit up, the stamps. Not just this community, but other communities, Bangladeshi communities, Pakistani communities, Indian communities. They'll often say, I remember them as a kid. Oh, that's amazing, you know, and they really do engage with it, not just on an intellectual level, but an emotive one. And then more recently, I was dealing with a press event with colleagues promoting our materials to the Chevening Fellows for the Foreign Office. And there was a South Asian reporter there. She said to me, stamps, so what? So I gave her the cell. By the end of it, the organizer said, you know, what's your favourite object? And this woman who was really anti-stamps, it's the stamps, it's the stamps. I was like, job done. So, you know, so, but likewise, we really are, of course, don't take my word for it. Let's just have a look at some of the case studies. So, Charles, earlier on, you were asking about the patent library. The answer is yes, we do promote it. Yes, we do highlight it. It's a really underutilised but fundamentally important resource for security printing. You can see here, this is Ray Simpson and Peter Sargent's brilliant book, Stamp Perforation, the Somerset House Years of 1848, 1880. Now, it's certainly not a J.K. Rowling bestseller, but it does include copies of the patent for the Perkins Cylinder D press. And I've taken the illustration from the book rather than the patent library, just to demonstrate that point, that you know, likewise, Nicola will often contact me, like if she isn't sure, we communicate together. We're a profession, we're a network of information for you all. Moving on to an exhibition I did with the Crown Agents artwork, Stamps, Independence and Post-Colonial Futures. I was able to link the wider book collection. So we have at the bottom left here Victor Whiteley's original sketch for the 30-cent stamp for the Kenya independence issue. And of course it takes its title from Kenyatta's first ever book, Facing Mount Kenya. Then moving on, we were looking and I was like, that's an unusual signature on the proof. And it turns out it's Jomo Kenyatta's signature, the first president of Nigeria. Not only did they commission it, he was involved in the actual signing off process as shown in the Crown Agent's bulletins of him signing it on a visit during the negotiations. So mashing collections up, mashing information up, that centrality to politics and culture is there. Moving on, so beyond the confines of mainstream philatelic research, the library's collection, philatelic collections also support research and publication of work in science, of conservation and preservation as it pertains to philately. We've had colleagues from the Royal, from the Postal Museum, come and look at our storage conditions. We've helped conservation scientists, you know, in doing pioneering research in climate control, temperature, humidity, packaging. I had to put the boss in. Sorry if it scares you, but he's here in spirit. But you can see here with the Board of Inland Revenue Archive, and David and Paul, not me, have done amazing work in getting it usable for research, because they were initially in these really hard to handle guard volumes that are quite dangerous to handle the collections. They maintained the archival integrity of it and did conservation work, and you can see we've got reams of it in usable condition to enable that research. And of course, off the back of that research became professional publications. So being part of a not an exclusively philatelic institution, we don't just aid philatelic research, we're aiding other community research, history, anthropology, art, science, you name it. We've got a finger in the pie. Now, by now, I'm hoping you've got a pretty good idea of our major holdings, a rough idea of why we might be significant. Now, I'd like to briefly describe how you access the collections. So, with regards to the British Library's philatelic collections, we're the most secure reading room in the library. So it's by appointment, first come, first served, because we can manage about 2 readers at a time. Now, during the pandemic, we have been shut, but we are reopen for 3-hour slots at the minute, and hopefully very soon back to full time. We've been very busy. And here's me and Paul playing with the Wherry collection for the First World War postcards for the 2014 exhibit we did. Now you can, and likewise you have the main reading rooms in the library, you can view the wider collections. And we have 9 reading rooms, so you've got social sciences, science 1 and 2, humanities 1 and 2, rare books, India Office Records, prints, drawings, philatelic. They're open Monday, well, the main reading rooms are open Monday to Thursday, 9:30 to 8 o'clock. That's rare books is open to 8 o'clock. Anyway, Friday, 9:30 to 6 o'clock. Saturday, the main reading rooms, not the philatelic collections, are open from 9:30 to 5. Sunday, it's just the exhibition areas. Now, we tend to take appointments from about 10 o'clock till about 4 o'clock, because that enables us to tidy up and do other back in house. Unlike other institutions, it's literally me and my boss running all of the front and back of house operations, no volunteers. So those hours are shorter than the other libraries, but it's not, you know, we've got other roles to do to support your research. Now, in addition to on-site access to our collections, researchers should also be aware of our online research resources, and they're all accessible via the main pages for the British Library, which I've shown here. To be honest with you, just put British Library in Google. It'll pop up quite quickly. We're very well represented on there. So what we have off the back of these will be our philatelic collection pages, which promote kind of major areas of material we have to give you an idea of what we've got, and there's stuff there about our reading room opening hours and how to get into the collections. Then we have our catalogues. So this is there are 2 major catalogues for the collections. We have our Explore the British Library. This is used for serials, periodicals, and printed books and maps and journals and so on. And this will cover the entire library, and it takes about 70 minutes to order. Now, the second catalogue you would access by scrolling down the page, and you'll see this Explore Archives and Manuscripts. So there's a second catalogue which looks up, says what it is on the tin, Archives and Manuscripts. This is where the British Library's philatelic collections are now being catalogued into. And then you could click on, and again, it's keyword search. At the minute, it's just the top fonds level, sub-fonds level kind of entries that are going in. That basically means top level descriptions of the overall collection. But in time, we're going to be putting a lot more metadata in there for more details, particularly for the Taplin collection, the UPU collection, which of course we've been digitising before the pandemic. During the last decade, there's been a real global acceleration in digitisation and online access to records, manuscripts, bibliographic and object-based collections in many archives, libraries and museums. New and promising frontiers in philatelic research are on the horizons, yet challenges still need to be addressed to fully realise this philatelic potential. Subject biases in cataloguing are a good example, and philately, sadly, is a victim of this. So I'd now like to turn my attention to some of these select platforms developed by or in collaboration with the British Library, and they're full of potential philatelic research. And the first one here is the Digitised Manuscripts platform, which allows you to search and access digitised copies of the BL's global and diverse collections of manuscripts and archives. The search page is quite intuitive enough. You can type a search in. Sadly, when they developed this, it predicated my appointment onto the philatelic collections, and sadly, postal history terminology in the descriptions is lacking, which is a problem. But it doesn't stop. You won't yield hits by putting in stamp, fiscal, postal. But if you go for more generic terms like correspondence, letter, charter, contract, the type of things that may have been taxed or have a postal mark on, it will use hits. And although you need to work systematically through it, which is a pain, and despite that drawback, it's really rich in revenue material, stamped papers, and pre-1848 postal history. So a good example here, on the previous page, is I've put in letters, and the Stevenson papers popped up covering the period from 1776 to 1820. And it comprises a collection of letters addressed to William Stevenson and his father, the Reverend Seth Ellis Stevenson, from the black British parliamentarian, abolitionist writer and composer Ignatius Sancho and his children. And here you can see how it looks online. I've cut and pasted to make it look a bit prettier than me. Now this is an entire dated from the 16th of November 1779 from Ignatius Sancho in London to William Stevenson in Suffolk. And it covers a 16-no bishop's mark and annotated postal rate. And of course it's an early identifiable example of how Britain's black communities used the postal service in the 18th and 19th centuries. And of course when you read his book, full of references to GB Postal Service. In fact, the Postal Archive had probably got his application. He wanted to open a post office and they refused. And the letters are either at Q or Review, which would be good to follow up at one point. And it's one of several examples. This isn't just a unique one. You can find the Paston letters on here. So really, really early GB medieval stuff. Also on this platform for the revenue specialists, so you don't feel left out, we have the music collection of the European author Stefan Zweig. And this online collection reveals he was actually an accidental philatelist and postal historian, and I might write a blog with that title one day. For example, here we have his marriage certificate dated the 3rd of August 1782 between Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart and Constance Weber, and of course on there's a £1 stamp paper revenue stamp. So it feeds back into the centrality of philately, postal history, taxation, to literally everything. Moving on, established in 2004, the Endangered Archives Programme provides funds and training for digital preservation of archives facing destruction, neglect from across the world. Much of the content's available on the programme's platform, which totals about 8.5 million images and 25,000 soundtracks and over 100 languages and scripts. So it's a big, nice collection. Incredibly user-friendly. It enables searches by project region and region via maps and word searches. And thankfully, I was friends with the people who set this up. So I was talking a bit about philately, and they seem to have taken it on board, because here we have a file from Tuvalu, which is part of a bigger archive, and it includes the philatelic and numismatic separate Ellis stamp issued between 1974 and 1976. You can, when you do such, you can click on it. You could go in, and here we have a letter for the Crown agents to, I forget who that is now, I can't read it from here, but you know, what we have here essentially is original archive files out there relating to the production of postage stamps. It's not, again, it's not an isolated example. Another collection in there from a photographic archive in Mongolia includes these photographic kind of essays or pictures relating to the postage stamp dedicated to the 35th anniversary of Mongolia's independence. There's quite a lot of images like this. It's all very Soviet and very serious. But, you know, it's great. And there's a lot more material in here. Postal history from the Caribbean, revenue papers, stuff from Bulgaria. Just have a play, see what you can find. The Endangered Archives project is also useful for philatelic researchers in another way. As a body, it can potentially provide funding for the digital preservation of important at-risk philatelic or postal history materials housed in public cultural institutions around the world. So not your private collections, but if you go to an archive and there's something not right, they can train and help get it digitised. They have grant funding streams for this. Initiated in 2012, something that I helped establish, and I'm quite proud of this, my tiny role in this when I was the curator at the India Office Records, is this was initiated in 2012. The Qatar Digital Library is the British Library's biggest digitisation project to date, yet undertaken by the British Library in partnership with the Qatar Foundation and the Qatar National Library. It includes over 1 million images of archives, maps, manuscripts, sound recordings, photographs and other objects showcasing the kind of cultural and historical heritage of the Persian Gulf and wider region. And the home page gets straight down to business. It's really straightforward. It directs you to either explore the QDL, which is abbreviation for the Qatar Digital Library, or articles from our experts. And you click on the former, and it will take you to this search page, and you can type in stamps, surcharge, post office, and philatelist. I tried to get some very basic philatelic terminology when they're cataloguing the material. And lo and behold, it's rich in India Office record and India Office private paper material, and includes files of postal history and philatelic significance, like this one here on the postage stamps of Mesopotamia. You can select the image, and it opens it up, and you can get the images. And then on top of that, it will give you a real in-depth catalogue description of it, and that can be in Arabic or English, which I think is quite useful because it enables international research. And then you can select it, and it'll open the images. And here we have a sample of the original postal stationery from the period, and along here with a letter ordering stuff from Harrison's and Sons. And again, it's not isolated. I'd like to announce at this point, I was meeting with the head of the Qatar National Library last week, and I'm pleased to announce that selections of the UPU collection during the British postal administrations of the Persian Gulf will be going online here, so you'll be able to start accessing digital content from this platform in the next couple of years. Something that we're just about getting ready to get to work with. So, BL Sounds platform presents a selection of 50,000 different sound recordings out of an extensive global collection of 5.5 million recorded sounds covering music, drama, literature, oral history, wildlife and the environment. Terms like philately, stamp designer will yield hits, albeit of a varied relevancy. So it includes, on this page here, sorry about, I'll just use that, don't do me for copyright, just kidding. It includes interviews with David Gentleman relating to the development of the Great Britain's 1966 Churchill stamps. And it also includes an oral, I found this out yesterday and I thought it was really cool, it includes an oral history interview with the Royal's very own Jack Jang in the corner, where he's talking about his philatelic museum, he's talking about and promoting the Royal. So do have a look. Sadly, data protection and copyright means not everything's freely available online. I've got lots of things about online, but yeah. And then moving on, we have the online gallery, which contains about 30,000 images from the British Library's collections, including maps, prints, photos. One suspects that this will eventually be replaced and the items amalgamated into a bigger system, But it does include philatelic materials like photographs of post offices, like this one from 1885 for the General Post Office at Calcutta. And then on top of that, it also includes a small portion of some of our BL philatelic collections. So a few years ago, it's quite a while ago now, David, sorry, I didn't. David once did an online exhibition of philatelic treasures in the library, and that material is now absorbed in here. And of course, here's an example of the Taplin collections, Mauritius 1847, post office, 1 penny on cover, which is a major rarity, and you can access that and blow the image up online as well. Collaboration. So Chris is absolutely right. London is one of the global centres of philately. You've got the Royal, the Library, the Postal Museum, all within a very short space of time. And the truth is, collaboration's the key to the future, is key to success, because the cultural sector is in for a really bumpy road here on in post-pandemic, sadly. And this is an example of a successful collaborative initiative. The Global Philatelic Library involved 27 institutions aiming, to quote from the webpage, to provide a consolidated listing of philatelic publications, archives, museums, items held by libraries. Along with the British Library's collections, this is a fundamental philatelic research resource for British Library content. Funding from the British Philatelic Trust made it possible for the BL to digitise microfilm copies of its Crawford Library of Philatelic Literature, and working with the Royal Philatelic Society and the Global Philatelic Society collaboratively, made it possible to upload, I think it's 600,000 images, pages of copyright-free material onto this platform for free philatelic research. Do use it. And again, just to show my point, I like treaty port stamps. So I'm having a little play, do my little word search. Actually, if I go back, so you can click on the library logo, it'll pop up on the first page. Select Crawford Library, enter a search term, and it will generate your hits. Then as you look at your hit, you'll get this page, you can open it, and at the bottom you'll see a file for a PDF. Click on that, it will download. And here we have, from the Crawford Library online, via this collaboration, the local post office rules for the Chifu post office from the kind of 1890s. So really is a game changer. You know, I came as the project was ending, and I'm jealous of my colleagues who had this opportunity, because it really is a huge legacy. Again, here's what's nice about this as well, and it feeds back into Taplin literature. Here's a page from the PDF that you can use. You've got an example of the book plate for the stuff that was acquired by the Tiffany Library, which David referred to earlier when he purchased the Tiffany Library from America. And then there's another aside for another area of interest for me. We've got here the 1875 publication, The Post Office of India, or Historical Review of its Rise, Progress, Regulation, General Administration. I do like these long titles. And then to wrap up, so to obtain a reader's pass, again, look at the membership pages on the web page. All you need to do, anyone can join, come along with 3 pieces of ID, passport, proof of address, proof of signature. Go to the upper ground floor of the British Library St Pancras site to readers' admissions. They'll make you fill in a little online form. Depending on how busy it is, 10, 15 minutes, you've got a reader's pass. You can access any reading room and collection firsthand at that point. And we have a culture of access. The only point we will refuse access is if it's too vulnerable or too fragile to handle, or it's in the exhibition cases. But even then, with some organisation, we could work that out. Once you've got your pass, email us at philatelic@bl.uk or my email after, and book an appointment. Come in. We'd love to see you. We really would. In addition to that, we have support with other things. We have a dedicated reprographic studio. There's one of my colleagues here. These are trained professional photographers with state-of-the-art equipment who will provide images for books. And of course, you go via that section as well to get the necessary permissions for publication. But we're always on hand to offer advice, of course. So if you're ever in doubt, get hold of us. I think I'm going to end it there. So thank you very much, and see you next year.